Hello, Maverick fans. Welcome to another edition of the Mavpuckcast. I am Jason, and I am joined again by the famous John Brooks, who got a chance to sit in his season ticket seats.
Yeah, that was pretty hilarious. We talked 2 episodes ago about the cardboard cutouts that you could get to have on display at Baxter Arena for this 40 game NCHC Pod extravaganza. I know you and your family ended up getting 4 cutouts, and we ended up getting 2 cutouts. Bridget and I did, and the first 2 days everybody was down in just 2 sections behind the home bench at Baxter Arena. All the cutouts that they had at that point were in there. And then today they added more cardboard cutouts because more people bought them and they had them on display. And we got a picture from Jordan McAlpine, who is the Gateway beat writer who covers UNO hockey, and he's been writing some articles for the NCHC that have appeared on their website this season. And he sent us a picture before the game that Bridget and I had our cardboard avatars placed in our seats up in 216 in the upper bowl, right at center ice. Well, we're on the end of the row, but the section's right at center ice. For the game tonight, we were up there all by ourselves, and it was hilarious.
It looked kind of lonely up there.
We did look lonely. It reminded us of the days downtown at the Quest Center, and then when it was renamed CenturyLink Center, when we were playing in that 20,000 behemoth. There were times when there were just a handful of us in some of the sections that we sat in at the upper bowl downtown. So that was funny. I thought that was pretty hilarious. So shout out and major props to the Baxter Arena staff or whoever was responsible for that. That was great. It gave them a little bit more room to accommodate some of the other team cardboard cutouts that appeared today at Baxter Arena, and they have more down in that lower bowl. So that was a very, very cool thing. I know some people wanted us to talk about cardboard cutouts on our last episode. We focused strictly on the game because Jason and I are under time constraints because people don't want a Joe Rogan-esque podcast from us apparently. Even though Jason and I enjoy it, they want us to to talk and move on. So
All I hear is Bridget in my ear going, "Stick to the script."
Stick to the script, Jason. Keep this thing moving.
It was pretty cool that they actually featured your cardboard cutouts and talked about how they were in there. I can't remember which of the announcers in the second intermission when they were talking about it was like, "I'm told that that's actually their season tickets," and we're like, "Yes."
Yeah, I believe that was Ben Holden. He and Dave Starman do a great job as the play-by-play crew for a number of these games during the pod, and Starman's one of my favorite hockey commentators anyway. So that was hilarious. That was fun, and I got to tell you, it was a great perch to watch a great game for UNO from tonight.
It was one heck of a game. If you missed it, you missed a lot. You missed a really good game. And if you tuned in at the end, you probably thought this game was not what it actually was. UNO ends up skating away with it, just slaughtering Michigan, putting 10 up, letting in 2. But a lot of that's third period goals. It was a tight match through the first. UNO stretched it a little bit. We had, I think, I was talking to a couple friends of mine that were texting and tweeting and stuff during the game about how different a second period this was from anything that we've seen, in the last couple years. I think this is probably one of the more complete games that we've seen from the Mavericks. There are still some things we'll talk about, I'm sure, that they need to work on because that was not a perfect game, but they did a lot of good things and capitalized when they had chances.
Well, you look at that first period, and we really did dictate play early on, and I think that was a key in setting the tone. And if you look at that first goal by freshman Matt Miller, and it was his first career goal as a Maverick, I mean, honestly, that was a situation where he was not going to take no for an answer. He just kept trying to push that puck there. He was right there in front of the goaltender, and he just kept hammering away at that and put that puck in the net. And that was the kind of effort I think we saw from the team all night. I mean, that just kind of symbolized UNO's game. And it was a great way to start the game. And obviously, congratulations to him on getting his first career goal for UNO.
We talked about it in the last podcast. UNO's now 1-1 in the pod, but I really felt like they played a good game on Tuesday, and it was just unfortunate that they didn't play a complete game, even though they played a good game, and that's ultimately what ended up hurting them. They took some bad penalties, and they ended up losing against a good Duluth team, and there was a lot of things that could have come of that. I was a little worried about whether or not they'd be up for the game, and at the time, Western Michigan had their starting goaltender, so last week I had picked them to lose and clearly got that wrong.
Yes, Jason is lamenting the fact that we did not record the previous episode of the podcast after the late game in the first day of the pod so that he could watch Western Michigan and he could watch their terrific goaltender, Brandon Bussey, go out with an injury. They brought in Austin Kane in that game, and he performed fairly well, but tonight was not his night. And you look at a team like Western Michigan, obviously you don't want to lose a goaltender like Brandon Bussey because that guy logged a lot of playing time for them last season.
Yeah, I think the announcer said that he played every game. So that would have been a big, and it is what it is. It doesn't matter that I'm wrong. I'm wrong a lot. So
I just wanted on
par for the course.
I just wanted on record that I picked UNO to win 3-1, even thinking Brandon Bussey was going to be in net. So see, that's the lack of confidence. Jason and I have been burned on these picks before. So Jason being a little bit cautious, he and I said when we were doing our preview of this pod format a few weeks ago that we thought Western Michigan was going to be our first big test because we thought we were going to be playing Colorado College in the first game, but because of COVID, Colorado College is not yet in Omaha. So we actually got Duluth first, and I think playing Duluth that first game was probably a good warm-up for this game because that Duluth team, like you said, I thought we played a good game. I didn't think we played a complete game. I think we could have won that game, but as Duluth showed against Denver, in their second game, they're kind of a deceptive team. They don't look that great. They don't look that flashy, but there's something about that team that just they find a way to close and they find a way to finish. So like you said, I thought the first game against Duluth that we played, I thought we played well. And I think that played dividends tonight because the team came out fast. They came out hot. And I think overall they looked good. But like you were talking, the second period, I thought that was kind of a tale of like three little periods within a period. We got off to a good start. Middle of the period, we looked like we were on our heels a little bit. It seemed like Western Michigan was dictating play in our defensive zone quite a bit, and then we kind of rebounded at the end of the period.
Western Michigan's second goal in the power play, I think, was the kind of the turning point because I saw that was after Western Michigan had kind of made a push. You were about halfway through the period, and it really came down to you've got half a game left. You're tied 2-2. What are you going to do now? And that's where I really liked the leadership of Kevin Conley to come out, really push the Mavs up. I guess we were down. We were up 1. That's right, because we had Chase Primu's goal. So that got him closer, and then Conley comes back. They get that kind of quick strike goal, and away we went. We got that 2-goal lead into the locker room and came out in the third and just piled it on in the third. I mean, just like piled it on.
Yeah, that was something else, wasn't it? I mean, it just...
And we've talked about that last season in the podcast and last season and even outside of the podcast. And I've heard other people say this isn't something like we noticed or anything. But For some reason, this team, UNO, has had in the past this proclivity to score a goal and then like the ensuing face off, they let one in. And it's like, so you go up a goal and now you're back to being tied, or you got within one and now you're down by two again. And it happened against Duluth. We got within one late, but then a fumbled pass on the entry and it gets sent down on the open net, and now you're back down by two. Like, it's just one of those things with this team that they've kind of always done that. So to see them push back to get a lead and then say, we're not done yet, we're going to keep pushing, and we're going to find a way to make sure that we get some insurance goals and get some breathing room there. I think that'll really matter for this team. They can really use some decent leads, some 3-goal leads and stuff late in the game. That way, if they do make a mistake, it's not this scramble to try to get back into a game.
Yeah, the one thing UNO hasn't really shown us the last couple of seasons is, and I don't want to make blanket statements because there's a game here, a game there that's not the case, but they are not a team that does well, with these close, like 2-1, 1-0 type games where they have to kind of clamp down and play tight, and that's not their game. This is a team that always does well when they're able to put up 2 or 3 goals early and kind of get that momentum, get the wind at their back. That's when UNO, especially in its current iteration, plays their best hockey. However, I will say that if you look at tonight, they did a lot of little things right that would make them successful in one of those close ticky-tacky back and forth type games. They blocked shots. They kept the puck out of their defensive zone. They really controlled things in the offensive zone, and so I thought they looked good in that regard. And like you said, 10 goals tonight. We saw a lot of guys. We saw a lot of guys score.
Well, I mean, until the 10th goal, it was 9 goals by 9 players. So
yeah, you look at newcomers like Jack Randall, who we talked about in the last game. I mean, Joey Abate gets back, back on the scoreboard. He was an exciting player last season. Chase Primo, one of our favorite players to talk about. Certainly game by game, he's looking good so far this season. Again, it's just one game and it's just the second game of the season, but they really came out and dictated play. And I think you would agree that it was exciting to watch. And I know that you had said to me, and I agree, that would have been a fun game to be at in person.
Yeah. This is one of those I'd love to be down in the lobby of Baxter singing right now.
I know, right?
But alas, we're not. We're here, and I'm not going to sing because then we would lose like 90% of our viewership, listenership. Listenership isn't really a word, is it? You don't want to hear me sing. That's what I'm getting at.
No, you don't want to hear Jason sing at all, but you can clap. Yep.
So let's do player of the game.
I
don't know that we can go goal by goal here. That's a lot.
Let's go goal by goal.
We're under a time crunch here.
Let's start Kevin Conley. I mean, did the equipment guy score in the third? I can't remember.
I thought I saw a coach throw a puck from the bench in. So, yeah.
Well, and you look, even performances, and just to get this started, even some of the performances that didn't show up on the stat sheet. Brock Bremer's a player that we've talked about a lot, and I saw him, a lot down there, down low, near the Western Michigan net, quite a lot during this game. He had some really good plays, and again, he didn't put the puck in the net, so he's not one of the prolific goal scorers tonight, but I thought he had a great game tonight. And I think there were a number of guys who looked good tonight. Yeah. And I don't know who you're going to pick, and I'm having a tough time picking because there were a lot of good, solid performances tonight. And a lot of guys you could make a case to pick, But I think I'm going to have to go with the newcomer, Matt Miller, who got 2 goals on the night, his first career goal, and then he got one late in the third period. He's a player that I've been excited about the past couple of seasons. Watching him in juniors, he was originally a Michigan State recruit, player out of Indiana. I'm very, very excited to see him progress this season because so far in these first 2 games, he's looked good. A strong, veteran player out of the USHL ranks. I think he's going to be very exciting as the season goes along, but I could have made the argument for a number of other players.
Yeah, this is, we talked about it. This is one of those complete games. So it is kind of difficult, even from a positive standpoint, to pick guys out and say, this is someone who really made a difference. I think for me, Smallage.
I would agree with that. Yep.
Was really solid. He had a couple assists, and then let's see here, it was 7th goal was his. Yeah. So that, we need that stability and consistency, and that's what I saw. Every shift he was out there. I'd throw an honorable mention to Sullivan. I think we've talked about him on past podcasts, just how reliable he is, and that was, he brought, his game. I heard the announcers talk about him, you're up 7-8 goals and you're still lying down to block shots. That's guys doing the little things and knowing that the little things are what matters.
Well, and Sullivan really has evolved into one of our most consistent players, and that's really what UNO needs is consistency. So obviously he's a guy that you could have picked, but I think the Smallage pick is great. I think our entire D-core played well in tonight's game, and that's something that we're going to need going forward. That was a problem area a couple of seasons ago, and I think you look at some of these defensemen. We talked about Johnny Tyconic in the last podcast. I think Brandon Scanlon is a guy that was a favorite of mine last season, and he's a player that played really, really, had a really solid game tonight. He and Tyconic on the same line, I think, is a fantastic pairing, and people have been pointing that out. But I think you look at other guys. You look at players like Kirby Proctor, and you mentioned Jason Smallage. Really some terrific budding young defensemen that are going to be great for this team for years to come. So I'm really excited, and I think that's like I said, a great pick for player of the game. I was happy to pick Matt Miller, happy to pick a newcomer, but there were a lot of good performances, and look, when you score 10 goals in a game and win 10-2, that's a great night all around.
And it was the second good game from Sundberg. He had, I can't remember which one of us had him as the player of the game for Tuesday nights, but
yeah, I picked him on
he's
Tuesday.
Still a force. Yeah. So to have him come back and follow that game up with a solid performance here on Thursday night just, speaks volumes for where this team can go if these guys stay committed. And, Miami's up next on Saturday. The challenge with Miami is everyone, I'm sure, knows that they're not expected to do well. They should be on a back-to-back, right? I think they play Friday and Saturday, if I remember right. So there's a lot of things
Jason's asking me technical questions here about this, and
I thought I had it up, but my phone went off, and I'm just too lazy to open it up.
No.
In any case,
you're fine.
There's
obviously,
a lot of reasons.
Miami lost 2-0 to North Dakota in their first game of this pod series, and it was I think it was a closer game than I think a lot of people probably would have predicted that it would be. They're obviously a team that is definitely rebuilding, kind of from the ground up under their coach, who is, I believe, Chris Bergeron. Do I have that right? I think I do. I'll find that out here in a moment. But regardless, that's a team that you look at last season and you look at where we finished last season, and obviously there wasn't any postseason play, but one of the things that kept us from having a better position in the NCHC playoffs, the playoffs that never happened, was a couple of really just disappointing games against Miami last season. And that's a team that, despite our struggles the last couple of seasons, that's a team that we really should have been able to defeat. And we struggled against them. And the series that we played against them were not the, kind of commanding sweeps that we were hoping to see out of UNO last season. So I don't know. It's one of those things where anything could happen. You come, especially when you come off a game like this, which is kind of an emotional high. You have a lot of success. As the game wore on, and Western Michigan was probably feeling fairly dejected. Things came easy for UNO, down the stretch. This is a game that we have to watch, and this is a game that we have to be, careful of.
If they want to beat teams like Denver and Duluth and North Dakota, it starts with playing your best hockey against teams like Miami and Western Michigan and St. Cloud.
You're exactly right.
You've got to go into this with the mindset that this is not a given. We're not going to be, walking over them. You have to come out and play the same way that you play against North Dakota. Play with the same awareness that you played against Western Michigan. Commit to doing all of the little things that you did right in this game. Otherwise, they're capable of beating you. And I think that's kind of what we've lost sight of in the past a little bit, is sometimes we think, we're ahead of them in the standings and so it's going to be an easy game, or they've had an easier time and we haven't, and we'll be fine. And they just kind of rest and they're not as sharp. And
oh yeah, you're absolutely right. And I do want to clarify something I said earlier. Chris Bergeron is indeed the head coach of Miami. Jason and I are both, somewhat tired at this point in the day. It's late. We, we're emotionally drained after that great hockey game. But Chris Bergeron, who had been at Bowling Green, former assistant in Miami, who came back to be the head guy, he's a really solid head coach. He did great things with the Bowling Green program. And the one thing to keep in mind is that they didn't win very many games last season, especially in the second half of the season, but they swept UNO at Miami last season, and they swept us pretty good. They swept us 3-0 on Friday and 4-0 on Saturday. And we were definitely the better team in that game, and we definitely had more to play for. And, we just fell apart in that series out at Miami, and we shouldn't have done that. And so, like you said, we've had two really, really solid games, but now we're playing a team that is not considered one of the top teams in the conference or one of the top teams in the country. And you have to be very, very careful. We're going to need good play on both sides of the ice. And I think the big thing that we need to do as a program is we need to come out and set the tone early. And I think if we do that like we did tonight, I think we can have success against Miami. But again, as you mentioned, nothing is a given.
right, and we talked a long time ago when we talked about the pod and kind of what success kind of looks like. I mean, you really want to come out of this, if you want to be in a good position for the second half of the season, you want to come out of this at worst 5-5.
Right. Right. Yeah, you don't want to blow this opportunity for
Right.
sure, especially since they're playing at Baxter Arena.
So you've got one against Western Michigan. You've got two games coming up in the pod against Miami. You have to look at those two games and say we have to play our best hockey so that we're sitting on 3 wins, and then you go back to finding where do those others two come from. We've got Colorado College, same situation as Miami. You should beat them. On paper, you should be a better team. But this is the NCHC. And there are plenty of writers out there that will tell you that the worst team in the NCHC is better than half the teams in the NCAA.
Exactly.
So I don't care that they're not they're not the best team in the NCHC. I don't care that they're below you. This is still a team that has the firepower and the capability to beat you.
Yeah, and you know what? They played a close game against one of the top programs in the country in North Dakota. And so they're going to be ready to play. This is a great opportunity for them. I'm sure that they don't want to go down 0-2 in this pod hockey format. So it should be interesting to see. What is your prediction, Jason?
I'm going to go with a 4-1 win.
Okay.
I mean, I think we're learning lessons. I like the leadership that we have. I think between Taconic and Conley, and Sullivan keeping to doing what he's doing with his consistency that we talked about. If those things come to Brest, I think we've got a really good shot of making a run at 6-7 wins here in the pod, and that would be an amazing 10-game stretch for the guys. So, and that starts with those guys saying you can't rest. We went toe-to-toe with one of the best teams. We went toe-to-toe with the 2-time defending champion, and almost came away with a win in the first game in the pod. So if we want to have another shot at that, and we want to see them, in a playoffs, in a frozen face-off, if we want to have a shot at anything, as far as hardware is concerned, it starts with doing the right things in the right time, and that's beating Miami.
Yeah, we can't be complacent for sure. And that's the biggest thing that they're going to be fighting on Saturday afternoon is complacency, because Miami's not a team that's, going to be able to put up a lot of shots on goal. They're not a team that's going to come out and dominate you, but they are a team that if you make mistakes, they will take advantage of it, as they did against UNO last season. And we were all just kind of pulling our hair out during those 2 series last season, because those are series that UNO really should have been able to get 4 wins against the Red Hawks, and they didn't do it. So it comes down to the mental toughness and the mental acumen. And sure, it's easy to play mentally tough against the top teams in the country, but for UNO, it's about, are you going to play, down to what's considered to be a lesser opponent in the conference? And I certainly hope that they don't. And we'll find out how mentally tough this team is. I know that this is something that Coach Gabinet preaches on a week by week basis with these players during the season. So I'm looking for, big performances again out of the players that you mentioned, Johnny Taconic, another newcomer like Jack Randall, but then, some of our veteran players. I'd love to see Taylor Ward step up. We haven't heard his name as much during these first 2 games, and he has been one of our most consistent players, so I'd like to see him have a breakout game. I am going to predict the Mavs win. I'm going to say it's a little bit closer. I'm going to be a little bit more cautious. I'm going to go 3-1 again, like I did with my prediction against Western Michigan, just because that prediction worked out great. And as a hockey fan, I'm incredibly superstitious. So 3-1, I'm going to say the Mavs beat Miami. It's going to be a little bit closer, but they'll get it done in the end.
Yeah. Well, that bodes well for us, hopefully. We'll see what they can do on the ice here on Saturday.
Yes, and let's hope they have the Apple TV app, NCHC app, figured out by Saturday, because that has been causing you and I both nightmares the past couple of days. I know you said you got it working. I'm pulling it up in Safari on the iPad and airplaying it to the Apple TV now. I'm not messing. I'm not playing games anymore. I'm not messing around, because we did that on the first day of the podcast, and it just irritated the hell out of me. So hopefully some of the technical issues. I know that there are a number of people who are new to NCHC or NCHC TV. So I hope that this doesn't discourage them, because it really is fun to be able to watch all these games. So, and the broadcasts have been great. So I'm excited to watch that game against Miami on Saturday. Tomorrow night, I'm sure you're going to be watching the Denver, North Dakota game on NCHC TV.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Both incredibly excited. That should be a great game. So, Jason, on another one of our skinny podcasts, because we're doing these things, every 48 hours right now. I would just encourage everybody to follow Mavpuck on Twitter, follow Mavpuck on Facebook, Faces. can't talk. Apparently, we got to get off this thing soon. Thank God we're not talking 82 minutes tonight. You can find links to all of our social media at mavpuck.com, as well as all the back episodes of this podcast, the past two seasons and the first 5-6 episodes of this season. So it's all there. It's all there to listen to. And you maybe, hopefully, if you go back and start back at the beginning, the first podcast, since people don't have a lot to go do right now, maybe you can see the evolution of Jason and I. Hopefully we've improved since that first podcast. I don't know. I'm kind of scared to go back and listen, but anyway, be sure to follow along. We appreciate your support. We appreciate when you like and share these podcasts and some of the other things that we share on social media. So until Saturday, when the Mavs take on Miami, go Mavs.
Go Mavs.